All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode number 38 of the RDO podcast. As always, you're joined by the Auto Bros, Jason and Alex Von Connell. And this week we're joined by a very special guest, the man, the myth, the legend, our very own Sasquatch, Liam Randle. How are you, brother?
Good, nice to be here finally, boys.
Yeah.
Liam's been a long friend of the show.
Mm-hmm.
We work together. That's how we met. We should probably start by saying how.
Yeah, should probably introduce him. So this is actually the first time I've met Liam in the flesh, but I feel like I know you.
Oh, we share a bond.
We do.
It's you can't comprehend in person. Just online brotherhood.
Yeah. That's a special thing, online brotherhood these days.
I think so, especially in, I guess, today's world where we have to social distance.
That is true. Yeah.
You need to form these bonds.
We've actually done this pretty well, haven't we?
Yeah.
Really? Kind of.
I don't care about it, to be fair. I think we're going to need to regain that social interaction. And what I like what you said is that there's probably not a lot of people that will form friendships online and never meet.
No.
But they should.
Yeah.
Right? They should.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I know I've had one previously from the US, and I've got no intentions of going over there, but just mutual interest. So she's the strange thing. So I'm 27.
She's the strange thing.
Well, she is a little bit strange. So she's in her 60s.
Right.
But she's actually owns a catering company called Food to Die For, which caters to essentially touring bands. So she'll do the the loadout for, if Metallica comes to town or whatnot.
Yeah, really.
Essentially, she'll do all the catering for those gigs. But just the mutual interest of, if you share on Instagram or Facebook, whatever, I went to this concert and they get shared around the world and someone else comments. Sparks up from there.
So is that how you guys met in the first place?
Yeah, essentially. So I've never met this person, but she sent tour merch and things like that from different essentially catering gigs that she's had. Shirts or patches and things like that she's got from the band. But again, it's someone from a different world that I've never interacted with. But we can still communicate from two different, she's 40 years older than me, but we can still share, one mutual bond, which is, love of music.
I think the beauty of social media is that you can find your audience.
Yeah.
So, as opposed to previous to social media where you can only really form bonds with people that were physically close to you, or
100%.
geographically close to you.
Generally pre-social media, the only time you would interact with a 60-year-old woman because of your heavy metal is when your neighbour's yelling over the fence, turn that shit down. But no, that's really cool. And that's probably one of the things that we talk a lot about, the negatives of social media. That's a positive thing that can come out of it. You can make connections with people that you'd never normally connect with and bond over a mutual interest, which is pretty cool.
If you're looking to bond.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's
probably the key, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's using social media as a tool for good.
Yeah.
Which is not what it's been primarily used for.
No. Definitely a lot of people go on there, I think, with the intent of being in attack mode every single day. I was going through the comments on, I can't even remember what the post was, it was something fighting related recently, MMA related, and there was someone who was just saying some stuff that you just knew he was a troll, and people were biting at it and they were going back at him. And then I just, out of interest, just clicked on his profile, and in his little blurb at the top, it says, just something about, trolling MMA fanboys for fun. And it's did none of you guys even consider that at the beginning? It was...
But the beauty of that is he's even proving how stupid the comment section are when he's outwardly said, you're one click away from finding the truth, but they don't even want to do that. They just want to fight it because there's this... I was speaking to someone yesterday and we almost summed up social media as an issue was raised, the 1%ers on each side of the argument scream over top of everyone else that's in the middle that doesn't really care that much.
Yeah, it's the loudest minority rules.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting off the social media path, because we should probably actually introduce Liam, right, to our viewers here. So, Alex, you worked with Liam. How long
ago was it? 3 or 4 years ago?
No, it's 18 months.
No, it must be long. Oh, yeah, it could be. No, it must be longer than that. I've been here for a year.
Yeah, but you only left Eagers, 6 months before that?
Or left.
Well, you left immediately and started this,
Yeah.
but we worked together 6 months
Yeah,
prior
might
to
do,
that
I
because you
suppose.
went back to Volkswagen.
Yeah.
So it would have, because you left Kazu's, December, November of 2019?
Something like I don't know.
This is riveting stuff, gents. Riveting stuff.
Yes, anyway, we used to work
Let's go
together.
18 months ago,
18
roughly.
months ago.
We worked together. I think we struck up a bond over. I think.
Oddities.
Yeah,
It was
just
strange.
into sort of some of the same weird humour, some of the same sort of music. Both probably, I think from a logic standpoint, I think you were frustrated with where you're at the moment because you're very like a extremely logical person, and I think you were frustrated that the irrational and illogical things that were happening in that department at the time. Maybe I provided a little bit of
Oh, I mean, it wasn't hard. You just needed someone rational to come into that business and you could instantly bond with them.
yeah. So that's where our bond started. But the reason why we wanted Liam on today is because he has been on a bit of a journey, lifestyle journey, we'll say, and you were not in the best shape
No,
when I met you. Is that fair to say?
that's very fair to say.
Yeah. And since you've left, we've all left the industry, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all gone on our journeys. You've had a kid, I started a business. Tell us about what got you to start your journey and what that journey's looked like and what it means now.
I think this is going to be something that probably hasn't been said before when someone makes a transformation, because it's usually very uplifting. Like, I had to find myself.
Yeah.
I do most of the things in my life are based on money or spite. And this transformation had both.
Right.
In my previous role, I worked with a sales manager, a good friend of mine. Essentially, he, outside of work, is very much into powerlifting. So tried to get me introduced into that sort of sport. It's a bit of a niche sport, I guess. You know, it's not your everyday team sport, football, basketball, what have you. Individual sport, which you don't see broadcasted all that often. But he was a sort of heavier guy and dropped a dramatic amount of weight out of this. No cardio, or very limited cardio, which is what most people hate to do, especially things like running and whatnot. It can produce a lot of stress to the body, also mentally. You know, you're exerting yourself. People don't like doing it.
I think
Especially when your titties are jiggling.
yeah, it was that. But part of that, one of the things I always hated, because way back in the day, I did a certificate 3 and 4 in fitness. Way back in the day. And this is back when everyone wanted to be a personal trainer. And one thing that used to just grind me so much is when you would get people who had done the same sort of qualifications I did, which compared to the science around exercise physiology now, I don't know anything. Like it's the absolute basics shit that we were taught back in the day. But what I used to hate was you would have a new trainer who would bring on a client who's like a 45, 50-year-old technically obese person. So someone who might be carrying an extra 20 or 30 kilos more than what they should be, haven't touched a weight, haven't done a squat, haven't done anything for 20, 30 years. And they're like, all right, so we're going to go and do a 1 kilometer run.
Yeah.
And it's like the amount of pressure on your joints, on your ankles, on your knees, like your hips, you're not ready for that stuff.
No, 100%.
So again, from a perspective of being and even like just a naturally larger person like yourself, like you're quite tall, like what are you, 6'6"-ish?
6'3", 6'4".
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
See, I'm saying
You're a
6'6".
big 6'4". You're a big 6'4".
I think you're just a little 5'10".
That's probably part of it. I'm trying to pump you up to make me look taller as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it wouldn't make sense for someone who is your size to go and do, all right, I'm going to do 5Ks of road running every day.
No, and I think that's the problem that a lot of personal trainers sort of get to, is once a client hits some form of plateau, because they're not sort of always as experienced as potentially they should be, the recommendation is lower the calories, up the cardio. That's the only two solutions. It's never, can we modify the diet? Can we up the weights and things like that? And also finding something that the client actually enjoys.
Yeah.
Because you generally find, even, say the bodybuilding community and things like that, they love stacking on the weight. The part they hate is the cardio to cut back down. And when you're left with the only thing is cutting, because the trainer doesn't know how to work around it, well, then you don't want to do it anymore. And that's, you see it all the time. Everyone joins a gym January 1st. They do it for, 2 weeks, a month. This involves a lot of running.
Most gyms, it's actually written into that's part of the business model is to get the big hype, and they know that you can't fill. If all the members of the gym went there at the same time, they wouldn't fit.
Yeah.
So it's just by design only profitable if you have people that sign up and never go.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you had a friend that said, "Come and try."
Yeah, powerlifting. So it's something that I've never done before. No experience in it whatsoever. I've gone to various gyms throughout, my life, and it's always been machines.
Yep.
Because there's no involvement of asking a trainer how to do different exercises or anything like that. It's got the instructions on it. You just go at it.
Because you're a bit of would you consider yourself an introvert?
Big time.
Yeah.
So my family, the males in my sort of bloodline have various levels of autism.
Right.
So communication's not, I can still do it. I had a, successful career as a sales manager, so I do know how to communicate, but it's not my go-to. I have to go into a separate sort
You
of...
can do it, but you don't love it at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, if the choice was to stay home, I'm staying home.
Yeah.
So essentially, it would just be different machines, which I wouldn't know what I was doing. I wouldn't know how many reps to do. You do it a few times, you don't see any results because you only stay there for half an hour and go, I don't know what I'm doing, and then you leave, and then you quit the gym. And that's been my experience constantly.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I got into powerlifting was for my mate as well as myself, because I could see that he was sort of had a stressful job. It's not a lot of people do the sport, so he sort of felt a little bit isolated in that not many people are doing this with me. I can't really communicate it with a lot of people, so I thought, oh, how about I do it with you? So I think he was doing a cut at the time. He was trying to make weight for a competition. And he said, because he was such a big guy and he cut down, he's still got sort of fat man mentality.
Right.
So, he still looks in the mirror and goes, oh, I'm 140 kilos, even though he's cut down to 100.
Right.
But he always sees that 140 kilo guy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Looking back at him.
It's a bit of sort of body dysmorphia type thing.
100%.
Yeah.
So I thought, how about I do this with you? I'm overweight. I've got no experience.
What better way to make yourself feel good?
Feel better. Yeah.
Just look at me.
Well, that's the thing. You've got someone who's deadlifting, 240 kilos. Someone who, has never deadlifted before in their life. You're going to feel great after doing a session with me.
Yeah.
So that's what got me sort of started.
What weight were you then? Were you looking? Was that a thing, or at this point it's not?
Not really. For the last sort of 3-4 years, I've probably been 110, 115. So I've always been pretty overweight. But the crutch was always sort of wear baggy clothes, things like that.
Sure.
And as long as you can sort of puff your chest out, it covers the stomach to a certain degree. But essentially, one of the guys that he's mates with that got him started on his journey, he owns his own gym.
Right.
So he has, it's called Ironhouse Gym at Caboolture, but he runs a program called Platform Strong. So he and his partner are both very dedicated coaches and very successful powerlifters. So Jen, his partner, Dave's partner, is I think the #1 under 60 kilo powerlifter in Australia.
Wow.
So, hugely competitive. One of the strongest women potentially in the world
Yeah.
for her weight class.
Yeah.
And, you can't do that without a lot of work.
No, of course not.
So essentially my sort of thought was, well, if you're going to go to a trainer, go to people who are obviously extremely successful in what they do. They know what they're talking about to a certain degree.
Makes sense, yeah.
They had a 10-week challenge. So essentially, and it wasn't, the thing that I liked about it is it wasn't based on weight loss. Because you had a lot of people who were powerlifters at that gym, so they might already be extremely fit. So it was based on, who was dedicated to doing all their workouts or, getting their macros correct or, completing, PBs and lifts and things like that.
So the most consistent good behaviours
Correct.
overall.
Correct. And it was over 10 weeks, which is a good amount of time to make realistic changes in day-to-day life. You usually see a lot of gyms do like a 30-day challenge. You gain nothing from 30 days in terms of like principles that you can carry forward. Because that's how you get a lot of this sort of like binge mentality and things like that. Like they'll, I'll go on a shake diet for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I'll cut a bunch of weight, but I've not learned anything from it.
No, like I'll win a competition in the most unhealthy way that I possibly can.
Correct.
And then at the end of it, I'm just going to go straight back to doing what I was
Also,
doing before.
the reward mechanism. I've seen people do those
Oh, yeah.
shorter challenges, and then the day of the challenge, the afternoon of the challenge, go and eat more McDonald's than they would have ever eaten before.
Yeah,
because
you
they
celebrated.
deserve it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so you're now putting an extreme hook on the end of something so short term, when you should be thinking of lifestyle. You should be thinking about what changes you're going to make.
And that's the thing, like 10 weeks it's 2.5 months. It's almost a third of a year. Realistically, if you're looking at it, that's a pretty decent amount of time to really set in stone, rhythms in not only diet, but just exercise and how you look at exercise and things like that.
So you're in this 10-week challenge?
Yeah.
And how many competitors are there?
So it's about 100 people all up in the competition. First prize was $2,500. Second prize was a PlayStation 5, and then I think
which is worth $3,500 in today's market.
And they actually had it too. It wasn't like we'll get you one eventually.
It was an empty box.
And the other 3 prizes were sort of like nutrition shop vouchers and things like that. So I thought, okay, well, unemployed, chance to get some money if you get top prize. But one thing...
Or chance to get a PlayStation 5.
Or a PlayStation 5 and carry on being unemployed.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I'd never sort of grasped in my repertoire, I guess, was like healthy habits. I've always sort of prided my ability to have a strong sort of mental attitude and be adaptable to different situations and problem solve and things like that, and never really cared about how my body carried me through all of those processes.
You used your mind to overcome your body.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's a major issue. Because I was the same. It's a big issue with intelligent people. Is you can think of a way to justify anything to yourself. You can also, you can
learn to adapt.
Yeah.
You can work around your weight issues.
Exactly. Yeah. Who was the business person who said he tries to hire lazy people because they usually find the most efficient? Yeah, Bill Gates.
He'll hire a lazy programmer.
Yeah, because they'll find the most efficient way to do something. So instead of just putting in bucket loads of work, the lazy person's going to find the easiest way to do it.
I heard of a great one where a software engineer was getting paid $120,000 a year by 6 different companies, and he would just get the job and outsource it to overseas and get them for 10 grand.
Wow.
10 grand each, so it was costing him 60, and he got paid $700,000 a year. That's brilliant. But there you go, that's an example. I wonder if he was a bigger boy or a... I'm not sure. Well, he seemed to have he probably had a lot of time to be at the gym, but I also think he's very smart and he's he could have used his intelligence against himself.
He could be the most jacked programmer in history.
He could be. Yeah, so the money was up there. I want to ask you now, knowing you, how much weight was put behind the competition side? So forget the prize money, but did you have an urge to compete?
Yeah, that was a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the last stages of working with the previous role, we had a desk decorating competition, right? So basically how I exited the business, COVID sort of came along, our dealership merged with another dealership brand, and essentially we were in a process of trying to retuck us into different homes. In the interim, we were stuck in the call center, which is the most fun place in the world. But I actually sort of half respect the managers there in the way that they did, trying to boost morale in a somewhat stagnant role, I guess. One of the things they do is sort of, stretches at 2 o'clock, so they might get up and play a game of, Pictionary or something like that, just to get everyone sort of, up and moving around. One of the things they did was a desk decorating competition, and you got a day off, right? Now, a day to me in dollar value is, I don't know,
$1 million? $1 billion?
But at the time it would have been like $100 or something like that. But I happily went out and spent, $150 to $200 to pimp out my desk. I set up like a Metallica stage, essentially.
Right.
Had
Little
like
figurines.
figurines, had diffusers which looked like fog machines, had lights, speakers, everything.
So you'll notice that this is why we brought you on today to talk about your fitness journey, not finances.
Yeah. But it was the competition side of things.
Yeah.
I used to be quite good at basketball as a kid. So I played basketball for Brisbane up until about 16 years old or something like that. I love the competition side of things, but I found that once you got to sort of a certain, elitist level in certain sports, that's when money started to get involved. And I found, my parents didn't come from wealth or anything like that. You'd often have your hand-me-down basketball shoes from your older brothers, things like that. And I was sort of getting mixed into all of these kids that they were good at the sport, but they had the money backing them, which helped them sort of get there. And it was just two different worlds. It didn't work for me.
I had a similar experience as a teenager.
So I think that's an aspect that I have lost in, I guess, the sporting world that I always tried to then put into my career. Is always try and progress as quickly as you can, most efficiently, often against other people, I find unless you find somewhere to put it in a healthy way, it can become toxic.
Preaching to the choir, man.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, that's something I've tried to coach out of both of you.
Yeah, and
So we both had, I've seen in both of you guys where there is an aspect of, from a managerial point of view, a good manager would try and get all ships to rise together. But from an individual's point of view, a lot of people want to progress through the ranks at all costs. And at all costs could be to the detriment of the team, because you might have a competitor that the most efficient way is widen them, get them out of your way, and then you instantly progress. But from a managerial point of view, that's not the best way. It's just a way for you, but not a way that helps the collective.
correct. And it bites you in the arse in the long run, because if you spend all your energy trying to dismantle someone else, you've not spent that energy on your team. Yeah. So even if you do get that role, you're still stuck with a shitty team because you didn't spend any time,
Or it might not even be that you're stuck with a shitty team, but you're stuck with a team who possibly doesn't back you because you haven't built relationships that you were supposed to with them as well. Yeah.
Or if it comes time for you to then move on from that role, you've got no one to replace you, so they give it to someone else because, you've not spent the time training someone to take your spot. now you can't move up.
It's such an important mentality thing that a lot of people just don't realise, is if you want to actually move up, you need to show that you can leave the place better than when you took it over.
100%.
Because if you can't, then why would you be given more responsibility?
Exactly. It's it's extremely valuable, and that is something that I learned from Alex in my time. But I think it was also, I guess, the situation of the business at that time. Like, you saw what it was like with the management, how it was carried out before you started. It was that environment of who can we point the finger at?
Yeah.
And that's why I was frustrated. I think engaged more with you, because it's like, oh, this guy actually sees it from a different point of view, where we are trying to build something, but everyone's just so stuck up there on asses.
Yeah. Solutions-based thinking. We need to have some solutions-based thinking as opposed to finger pointing.
Yeah, exactly. So, with being sort of unemployed for X amount of time, you do need to funnel that energy into something. So, whilst I'm not helping a company grow at the moment, why not help myself? So that's sort of what went into this challenge. Winning was a very good...
so you won it, 10 weeks.
I did win it, yes.
Won it. Yeah.
So in the challenge, I lost 16.5 kilos over that 10 weeks.
Jesus.
So I've lost 20 kilos to date now. So highest was 100.
That's awesome, man.
Highest was 119.5. Sitting about 199 now. So double digits. Haven't seen double digits for...
So you're the lightest guy in the room. What are you?
Yeah, 105.
Jesus.
Yeah. And you're the tallest.
Yeah.
So that's impressive. And you can lift more than us. So that's really impressive.
Yeah, well done, man.
Really impressive.
Well, that was one of the things that I said to my coaches was I wanted to be strength-based. So I said, at the end of the challenge, I don't care how I look, what the scale says, as long as I progress weight-wise. Because I find that a lot of people get fixated on a number on the scale, and that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
You could be 110 kilos and, heaps of body fat. You could be 110 kilos and, be a competitor, ready to run on the football field. Weight is, meaningless unless there's something behind it. So, and this was just, they just work together. If you do the program, your weightlifting ability progresses, but you also drop sort of body fat at the same time with the exercise. So, they just worked hand in hand together. But I just made sure that was my focus rather than the numbers on the scale. Because that can fluctuate too. I mean, you have, a salty meal or something and you hold more water. You could find at the end of a hard working week you've put on, a kilo, and then you get, demotivated.
Get down yourself, yeah.
See, I don't fluctuate. I don't fluctuate at all. I've just gradually, over the last 3 years, gone up 15 kilos. And I find myself tricking myself when I was speaking to another friend, and he's like, oh yeah, I dropped 2 kilos. I started at the gym this week and dropped 2 kilos.
Yeah.
And that in my head, that's played in my head, but then I have to realise exactly what you said, which that is a metric that is actually not an important metric.
No, but you also find the people who go to the gym for the first time and drop 2 kilos, it's like your body's going to shock. Like, you've not done this before. Because that was the other thing, like the reason why I lost so much weight so quickly. So I hadn't been exposed to exercise, like proper, genuine exercise, heart rating, sweating for a decade. Even when I was going to the gym prior for a month or so, I'm not doing anything there.
Yeah.
Whereas I had structure. So I work very well on, I can problem solve, and I do have my own thoughts, but I do also flourish on structure. Especially if it's a field that I'm not experienced with.
For sure.
So if I know what I'm doing, I can find different ways to adapt things. But if this is a world where it's foreign to me, if you can give me a plan, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So this is one of the things I discussed both with my trainer and with Alex. Was I was very strict on the diet. So the macros were to a T.
Wow. And
one of the Dave's concern, my trainer, was, how will this translate after the challenge? If you're being so strict on yourself now, how will you adapt it to, going to breakfast or pizza night or whatever, is it going to derail you? I said, well, there's no point you giving me a plan with set macros and set exercises unless I follow it. I want to see what I can do in this 10 weeks. What happens afterwards, we'll deal with it afterwards, but I want to see what can be achieved with what you've set out, essentially. And you do learn, because it is over 10 weeks, you can sort of learn, okay, well, rice is X amount of carbs and protein, and oats is X amount of carbs and proteins and fats, and you can sort of grasp, a pancake, that's made mostly of oats. You can do your little hacks, I guess, so you can still make everyday food.
Yeah.
So you're saying
macros.
It's about allowing your brain, like giving your brain a structure, like the healthiest version of the structure, and then modifying it and hacking it to something that you like. But if you had not done it before, you would have just had a pancake.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, it changes your relationship with food.
Yeah.
And you do, it's like, we've mentioned on the podcast a few times before about money, for example. Like people who focus on their money generally make more money. People who don't focus on it, generally the money disappears and goes somewhere else. If you take a 10-week period of time to focus on your food, it's hard to all of a sudden not focus on it afterwards. So you might go back and you might add some things back into your diet that are the bad things that got you into where you were in the first place, but you're not going to be doing it to the same extreme.
No, correct. And it's about looking at, like we had sushi the other day. You can, before you just loading up your plates and having plates. I think we had 5 plates each or something like that. But it was, only like the salmon and rice and things like that. It wasn't getting like the cheese covered, crunchy chicken rolls and things like that. So you can still enjoy going out. You just look at it in a different way.
What I find interesting about the way that your mind works too is that you are more computer than you are human.
Oh, big time.
So what I see is you going with that 10 weeks of strict macro following was purely a data collection thing to then know and after that point, okay, if I do this, then that equals this. And I think that's really, really fast because I'm not like that. I have to really apply my brain to try and figure out trends, patterns, and...
No, and it's funny because the only other person that I know whose brain works in the same way I despise. So I can see how it's irritating for other people, but that's...
I don't think it's irritating.
Well, it can be. So, like, I'll often repeat a scenario in my head hours after it's happened. If I've had a certain interaction, I'll play it back, often with my partner. She's like, shut the fuck up. That happened 2 hours ago, but it's all... I guess data collection and storage. How can I apply it to the situation next time?
But it's like it's the principle of machine learning, isn't it? It's pretty much you give a scenario and then you just run the scenario multiple times and see what in different ways and see what the different results are. So I do something very similar to that too. Yeah. I think a lot of people do it, whether they realise they're doing it or not is probably another thing.
See, I have those negative interactions you talk about. I play them in my mind too, and I don't play the positive ones.
So just all the negative outcomes.
Yeah, so
I should have hit that guy. I should have stabbed him.
Well, like when I might have an interaction, I think I had one recently. A joke didn't land.
Right.
With I was out.
That happens to you all the time.
Very rarely, top shelf comedy. But I threw some joke out, and
like the shower bottles laughed.
It didn't get the reaction that I thought, and then I just played it over my head and over my head and over my head. And I realised that I probably used one of the wrong words, and I interchanged the word and then tried it again, and it worked. It landed. I can't even remember what the joke was, but it was
a crack.
It was pretty good.
Did you tell the joke to the same person?
No. But I was very critical of myself in that moment, and I can see how if you're overly like that, and you pick up every interaction as a negative interaction, and you're constantly turning over in your head the bad stuff, I could see how that could be pretty damaging.
But do you only think about the bad stuff? Because I think about negatives too, but I think about the positive stuff a lot as well. And I think that's half my problem is that I think about I think about times when I've had a positive interaction with someone where maybe it's made me feel good, and I just think about that all the time, and I'm like, yeah, I'm sweet.
Yeah.
No, my brain is worst case scenario
Yeah, okay.
at all times.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I'm over prepared in a lot of aspects of my life, is because it's always going to be shit.
It can be a barrier between just doing anything too, right?
Correct.
Because again, like it's that paralysis by analysis thing where you might, and it's why I'm probably, if your brain's like that, it's an admirable thing that you've even done this 10-week challenge in the first place in a field that you've never experienced before. Because most people with the same brain would go, how can this go wrong? And they would have a myriad of ways that it could go wrong, and they go, okay, it's probably not worth me even trying it.
But I did think of all those before I went in. However, the two things I mentioned earlier, money and spite, are far more powerful than what could potentially go wrong.
So tell us about the spite element, because we've spoken about the money, and I want to hear about the spite, because that interests me.
There's a person in my life who will remain nameless, who is, in my mind, built up more so than they should be, my arch nemesis.
Right.
So this person doesn't know that you're their arch.
They might.
They're your arch nemesis.
I don't think so. But
Would you prefer that they do or they don't?
I'm at this point. I'm either way.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore.
But would it be more upsetting to know that your arch nemesis doesn't even know you exist?
I'd want to know.
No, they know I exist.
Yeah.
I've interacted with this person. I haven't just picked a random person. One thing that I always found irritating was that I could be successful in all other fronts of life, relationship, finances, working career, education, whatever have you. It's all fine. The insult would always be you're fat.
Right.
Which was true.
But it's the easiest thing to do, right?
But it was accurate.
Yeah.
It's a thing, yeah.
And that's why it strikes a nerve as well.
It does strike a nerve, but it
Which isn't surprising because it has to go through so much fat to get to that.
But I didn't mind that I was fat. I minded that it was the only thing that this person had.
Then you'd given them a weapon.
I wanted to take it off them. So you don't have this anymore. What have you got?
Yeah.
It's the one thing, because it was always the only thing.
Right.
You're fat.
Do I know this person?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
That's great. Like it's taking someone's weapon away from them.
But we spoke about, I think we've spoken about something similar previously where it's dangerous. At least you've only got one person that you felt like that way about, and you're doing something in yourself to fix it. Because
no, it doesn't affect that person at all.
Yeah.
It's not negative towards them. It's just taking something off them that was negative towards me, which... Because it's funny because I still don't... Like, if I bounced back and gained a ton of weight again and got really fat, I would be disappointed that I had let go of the hard work, but I don't think it would dismantle me as a person, which I think it was I think that was the important part of why I went for being able to lift more weight than I did for weight loss. Because I didn't want to get trapped into this cycle of, constantly looking in the mirror and, how do I look and things like that. It was just, plates on the bar.
Yeah.
As long as I can put plates on the bar, I don't care what comes at the end of it. And I think that's been good in terms of, I can go out and eat food again and things like that, because I'm not overly concerned about, is the tum-tum coming back or anything like that. So
you will be when you watch this back, because we've shot it in widescreen to fit us all in.
That's why I'm 5'8" in this, by the way. I do just want to say two things about you picking a target. Okay, so that same mentality can be very close to the line of bullying, right? So you could pick a target as a bully, and what a bully would do is now cut that person down any way that they can do it.
To make themselves feel better.
To make yourself feel better, yeah. Okay, so that is bullying. what you've done is use that as a motivator to target yourself. The other thing I'll say, which is what we have spoken before, is that you've picked one. The problem with social media is that you tend to rate yourself up against an unlimited amount of people, and that's dangerous. If you pick one or two or three people and you say, okay, so they're my benchmark, and I'm going to work towards those benchmarks, that's okay. If you try and live up to what you see in a countless number of people on social media, that's a problem.
But it's not even just picking one person or one nemesis. You've also picked one fitness goal to target. That's one of the things that I struggle with, is that, like, at the moment for me in life, the only thing that I can really focus on is weightlifting at home, because I'm trying to work out around Nate. But it's not really in line with how I've always worked out in the past, because it's always been sports related in the past and sports specific. So whether it was basketball or kickboxing or whatever else I was doing back in the day, I would train in that certain way. So then now I even find myself where I think I spread myself a bit too thin on certain things, because I want to be able to deadlift 150, but I also want to be able to do a 10K run. And it's like, I don't have probably the time. Yeah, I want to be a jack of all trades, but I don't really have the time to be able to do everything. So I really need to have a good hard think about what I want to do right now, and probably just streamline it towards that one particular goal, I think.
Yeah, and I think you see it in day-to-day life. People try and put you in a box, and it can lead, it's the same thing with pressure with finding a job in university and things like that. You're expected at 17 years old to roadmap
The
your
rest of your
entire
life.
future.
That's right. And pick the one thing that you're going to love for the next 50 years of your working life.
And have a debt associated to that too, because at 17, you're like, oh, which one of these $60,000 uni courses am I going to do? I don't even know if I like it yet, but I need to sign up and do it, and then that might turn into a career at the end of it.
Yeah.
I thought beer bongs were cool, so.
It's still cool now.
And you should, but that's the issue. It's that you're still, what your frontal lobe doesn't stop developing till you're like 25 or something like that.
I can give you a real tangible experience of, like, the brain development thing was in motorbike riding. So I got my motorbike license when I was 18. It was a little bit later than what I could have got it. I got into motorbike riding late in my driving career. And I used to have people on a daily say to me, you are a temporary Australian, you're just going to die, you're going to lose your head. And when I was 18, I got my big bike at 19, so I had a 900cc motorbike when I was 19, and it ramped up. And I could think, like, when someone would say, you're gonna die, I'd be like, not me, man, not me. And I distinctly remember when I turned 25 years old, riding down the road, and nothing had even happened. A truck just went past, in their lane, everything was fine, and my brain went, what would have happened if they just clipped me? Never had that feeling before. And that was literally the formation of that frontal lobe that's saying, okay, you have a fear complex now, you think of repercussions now. But prior to that, I had never, ever, not even considered. If anything, it heightened the appeal to me of riding, because it was more dangerous. People's perception was that it was really, really dangerous. So I remember that very distinctly.
I think about these moments all the time now, because I would class myself as naturally cautious in certain ways, but also a dickhead in other ways as well. So and I guess it's just that thing of, like, people are scared of things they don't understand. So I'm usually cautious about things I don't understand, but in things that I just throw myself into it full-heartedly and just back myself to survive or whatever it might be. One thing I think about a lot is alternate universes. And so your example just there with the motorbike thing of what would have happened, I reckon as soon as you have that thought process, you've created an alternate universe where that did happen.
There's 1,000 Alexes going.
That's right. Well, because I think about this a lot at home now, like with Nate, for example, because one of the things that we do every single day is we boil his water bottles. And my stove is here, and then the sink is here. So we just get a pot, we put water in it, put it on the stove, gas stove, bottles are in it. Meanwhile, Nate's like running around underneath my legs and stuff like that. And then, so one thought I've had a lot is after I pull the bottles out of the boiling water, I generally will pour the boiling water in the sink. Now I look at it as a bit of a sanitary sort of thing too, to, like, obviously kill any germs in the sink. but the amount of times I've thought about me moving that pot of boiling water over my son and potentially dropping it on him, and I reckon that there's probably alternate universes where I have actually done that. And these thoughts go through my mind all the time. M1, driving up here or driving back, there'll be, potential accidents and stuff like that. And I think every time I think about one of those things, I create an alternate universe in which that's happened.
I think that was an episode of Rick and Morty where...
Right, yeah, probably.
Morty wanted a device that, like a PlayStation, you had like a checkpoint. Right. So if you did something, you reverse back to the checkpoint. I remember that. Yeah. And he thought he was just reversing time, which Rick said you can't do. So he was just putting him in all the different realities and killing that Morty.
So you're saying Back to the Future is a bunch of bullshit?
But yeah, so that's one of my sort of crackhead thoughts that go through my brain every day.
Okay, so tell me, what is the one big takeaway that you've got out of this journey of yours? Because I think it's significant, and you might actually not think it's as significant as what I think it is for you. But I think it's massive. It's a massive amount of weight. It's a massive amount of concentration and dedication that's needed to get there. It's a plunge that most people don't do. If you did a cross section of the general community, they wouldn't take on something like that. Look, there's people that do, and props to the people that are doing that. But
no, I did do it, and I do think that a lot of it does have to do with my analytical ones and zeros brain, because it was essentially just put this food in, do that exercise, result will happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But most people are a lot more emotional than that, and I think that there's two main factors. One, people don't know what they're doing. Yep. That's number one. And two, people are emotional. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that this is one of the things that a lot of, say, personal trainers and things like that don't take into consideration, is that people are humans. So what you see from a pre-planned workout, so you could essentially just have, a pre-planned workout that you could send to 30 people, and you might have 20 of them flourish on this program, and you might have 10 that didn't, and it might not be because of the structured workout, but it might have been the mindset of those 10 people going into those workouts.
20 of them have the discipline to actually follow it. 10 of them may have found ways around things, or...
But it's not always even that. It might not even be like lazy. It could be they broke up with their boyfriend, or they got fired from their job, or things like... We have
trauma or something.
We have outside things that happen, that affects our performance in other areas of life. We always promote at work, leave your shit at the door. That's a fine thing to say, but it doesn't usually work.
And it's not helpful either.
No.
Like, it's, trying to tell people who've gone through, whatever the case may be, but have gone through something, that when they walk through the door of the business, that they shouldn't be a human being and actually, talk to a co-worker or even their manager about it. Like, it's unrealistic and it's unhelpful.
I actually think it's one of the biggest misnomers in corporate culture now. So something that I've carried with me for many, many, many years, and what I've always tried to instill in any team that I've worked with, is not leave it at the door.
No.
Because you are here for so long. Let's use work to help facilitate a great life. So if you have mental baggage that you're bringing from home, let's nut it out at work. And vice versa. If you're having stuff at work, well, I want to give you a space that you can, I want you to feel confident that you can speak at home about it. That leave your shit at the door. That is so old school and so antiquated, and is so anti what we should be doing as a society. And like I said, if you just looked at that allocation of time from data, you can't just tell someone to switch off.
No.
And only dedicate your capacity to me.
Yeah.
I was speaking to a friend yesterday, and she's having a baby. She's transitioning from work to motherhood, and her new boss just doesn't get it. Well, no, you're either going to work full time or you're not. Well, hold on a second.
Wow. It's 2021, bro.
Yeah. And she has got so much to offer but you just might have to customize what that role looks like on the other side. And for him, it's not even on that radar. But I think the really successful managers out there, or people managers, are going to be people that recognize that, okay, well, you're bringing something to the table that we really appreciate.
Yeah.
You've got some stuff that you need to deal with. Let's deal with both of those things together.
Yeah.
How about you benefit from the work that I'm going to give you, and how about at the same time we'll help you out with the other stuff. Work should facilitate your life.
Yeah.
It shouldn't facilitate your life at work.
For sure. And one of the things that I was always a big proponent of is when you are working, having a home base. So your home base might be at home if you've got a good home life, and I've been fortunate that my career really started to thrive when I got a good solid home base with my wife now. But a lot of people don't, or they have something going on at home. Therefore, home's not the home base anymore. No. So work should be your safe space or your home base as well. Because I feel like as a human being, if you're spending 50% of your awake time at home and 50% of your awake time at work, which is essentially what you're doing. If you're getting 8 hours sleep a night and you're working 8 hours a day, there's only 8 hours you're at home. One of those things needs to be a safe space for you to be mentally okay. If both of them aren't, then you're going to have big problems.
Yeah,
correct. And I think that that's the beauty of the gym in one way, is that you can make that a constant. So in a world of variables where, something might go wrong at work or something might go, wrong at home, that 20 kilo plate is always going to be a 20 kilo plate. It's never going to talk back to you. It's never going to say anything. It's always going to weigh the same. It's a consistent. So if you have somewhere to go for an hour where, everything's set up the way it was when you left, and you know what you're capable of doing in that place, it is, I guess, a meditation in a way. So one of the things that I put into place was no music. So, like the gym will obviously have music playing, but I ditched headphones.
Yep.
Because I felt that was almost like a crutch.
It's very David Goggins of you.
Well, it makes sense because...
So I think about it in because I heard Rogan speak about getting rid of it as a crutch, and the reason why I work out is I want to be in a situation where I can protect myself, and if a building falls down, Eye of the Tiger might not be playing.
Yeah, I was going to grab my AirPods.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Eye of the Tiger is not going to be playing when you're trying to pull 300 kilos off the grounds. So if you're training for an event, you're not going to have that pick.
No, but you can sing it yourself.
I'd love to see that.
Imagine just you're I'm robbed and mid-fight you're like, it's the eye of the tiger.
I'm sure it's happened.
Oh yeah.
I think it's the people that have purely trained to music, like psych up songs, and then they're just like.
But there's the other thing that goes into it too, where it's a huge time waster. So, yeah, okay, it can pump you up. It can also derail you. Like if you're do a set and then you're flicking through your entire library of what you want next, your heart rate's dropped, you're not in it.
I find it too when I'm lifting, if I'm listening to certain songs, like say I'm listening to a Tool song, for example, and it's in a bit of a lull period, and I'm like, I normally only have maybe 30 seconds between sets, but I'm like, there's a crescendo coming, and then I'm just going to wait for that, right? Yeah. And it might be a minute and a half later, and like you said, heart rate's lowered, and but it does power you through it too. But the no music thing, it's again that to me makes it more of a meditation thing too, because you are in your own thoughts whilst you're going through what it is that you're going through, rather than having another external.
There is only really one workout song, and that would be Here's Johnny by Hocus Pocus. 1995 or something like that. Do you know the song? No, we'll play it after.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
But I've gone as OCD as wearing the same shoes, the same 2 pairs of shorts every session, so that...
So you wear 2 pairs of shorts every session?
Yeah, I wear 2.
That's the gym equivalent of double mask.
I get very wet. So that if there are inconsistencies, it's in my form, not in what I'm wearing.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Well, I see all the time on social media and stuff like that, some people have like Converse one day, then like Adidas, and then Vans. It's like, yeah, okay, you might be proficient enough a lifter to just know what you're doing. I'm not at that level yet. I'm still at the stage of learning the craft. So I want to, again, it's eliminating variables.
Yeah, you got to build a foundation first.
Yeah, so I know if I set up this way with this, you know, drop in my shoe, it's always going to be, my feet are always going to land at the same spot. You know, the inconsistencies will come in other areas, my lower back, my knees, or whatever it is, but it won't be because every week I'm standing at a different height or have a different slope in my shoe or something like that. So yeah, for me, it was just finding a consistent place. So the gym was that consistent place. No other interaction with other people, you know, nothing to, and what I don't want to say is that I don't want to promote that there won't be disappointment at the gym, because there definitely is. You know, you might go in there and you don't complete a set because for that day, you know,
Have a weak day.
it just wasn't in you.
Yeah.
So you will find disappointment there too, but I find the chances of that happening, especially with the, you know, kicking of endorphins from you actually doing workout, the impact is far less than if the customer screamed at you, or if you, you know, if your girlfriend, you know, had issues or what have you. It's just sort of that safe space.
And it's an environment that you're putting yourself in where you're surrounded with people who are just trying to get better. And trying to get themselves better and to a better place. And there's a lot to be said for that, because, you know, like, hey, we worked in retail in cars. It's a pretty negative experience for a lot of people, particularly like customers will always claim that it's a negative experience. Customers, oftentimes you make it a negative experience when you ruin it for yourselves and for all of us. But even just the corporate culture in those environments, it is very competitive. So it is about, like, when you're just a salesperson, it's about, I got to sell more cars than you, and I got to sell more cars than you because I want to look like I'm the best. Like, for me, it wasn't even about the money, so to speak, when I was selling cars. It was about competing and being the best. And that competitive nature can be a positive thing, can be a negative thing, as we've spoken about before. But when you go to the gym, and it can be competitive too, but you are surrounded by people who are just trying to make themselves better.
Yeah, it's people who have chosen to go there.
Yeah.
No one's forcing you to go to the gym.
That's right.
You're paying the $15 and you're doing the hour there. It's your choice. So yeah, you don't often find negative people in that environment. It's just, it's a world that I haven't been exposed to. It's funny because because of how sort of my brain does work. I try and limit ups and downs. It sounds depressing, but again, it's another consistency. I'd rather work at a steady medium than be on ecstasy and then depressed. So I haven't really been bothered by work environments that have been quite negative. I've just sort of been accustomed to, that this is just what life is. But it was a strange experience. Was in this 10-week challenge, we had essentially like a group, a Facebook group, where it was just the people in the group, no one else. And it was just positivity the whole time.
That's what we were saying last week, that closed groups seem to be the only place of positivity on social media.
Depending on the group, oftentimes. But tell us about your coach.
So
I'm going to go for a piss.
I was literally just thinking, Alex is very consistent in leaving pretty much every episode. I was like, it's got to be coming soon. So tell us about your coach, though.
So Dave, he's same age as me, so he's 27, turning 28, I believe. Very skinny growing up. So essentially, he had almost the opposite, or potentially even a harder journey, I guess, is putting on mass. In my opinion, anyway, I've found fat loss easier to do than, I guess, what muscle building will be to do. I'm not in that phase yet. But he started off, I guess, skinny, and he worked to build up. But he's, I'm not entirely sure where he got sort of all his education and whatnot from. but he's very good at what he does. He does online coaching as well as owns his own gym, but he's got clients, all the way up at North Queensland to down in Melbourne.
Yeah.
So he's got people who are reaching out to get his services because he does know how to sort of build a program and work with a client. I made sure that I was as honest with him as possible. So it's a conversation that I had with him where I said, I know you've got hundreds of clients, but I'll make the agreement that I'll be as dedicated to you as possible. Because I said, otherwise there's no point. There's no point having, 6 cheese pizzas and a block of chocolate and saying, I had kale for lunch.
Yeah, that's right.
And then essentially, why am I still fat? It's obviously
This is your fault. It's your bad coaching.
That's it. So I made sure the relationship was, I'll do whatever you program, constant communication, and we'll get there. And he's been really supportive in the way of, it's more or less just being technique. So the nutrition side of things, I think I grasped a lot earlier than what most people struggle with. Because again, most people are, emotional eaters, they don't have time or whatever, so they're just shoveling in whatever they can. So it takes a while to get out of that programming, whereas I've had this free time where I can go and do the shop and meal prep and do all that sort of thing. So my biggest downfalls have been sort of technique and getting that in track, especially for a taller guy. Powerlifting is not the friendliest sports.
No.
The taller you are.
Yep.
Sign of a good coach too, who's identified the kind of person that you are and realised that, okay, if technique is what Liam finds important, then I'll just address that and he's fine with the other stuff. Whereas a bad coach is someone that just applies the same thing over and over and over again. No, this is how you do it,
It's like a bad salesperson, isn't it? Just talks to people about all the things they don't really care about instead of actually qualifying and finding out what's important to them and focusing on those.
And it's good too because, like, I've only met him once because he, operates a gym that I'm not part of. It's in Caboolture, so it's not local for me. So it's all more or less been online. But he'll get you to film from different angles too, so he can see, where your back is from every angle, where your knees are and things like that. So he's still spending the time to make it as personal as possible. Because I guess at the end of the day too, you're in a very sort of saturated market unless you can show that you're, providing results. There's no point.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the benefit of competition, right? Is if you've got only one person offering a service, everyone has to go to that person. But when you've got this many options, you actually need to provide better service. And obviously, based on your results that you've received, he must be a very, very good coach.
Yeah, 100%. And it's a two-way street. Obviously, the client has to put in as much as or even more than what the coach puts out too. But I just said, even if it's something that you wouldn't normally prescribe to someone, like, I'll put in 100% what you structure. And I think the good thing that I've noticed too is that the coaches have coaches.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing that I've noticed, especially in the strength community, is that pretty much all of the top tier coaches also still have coaches. So even though you might have the knowledge, like, you've obviously acquired the knowledge to be able to program something, so why not just program your own, structure? But they're still seeking knowledge from other people because other people have different ideas or see things that you don't see.
Yeah.
So it's always reassuring when someone that you're getting knowledge from is also still
Yeah,
learning.
definitely. Yeah.
So that's something that was important as well.
So, I want to ask you two questions. Or is it two questions to close this part out? Because there is something else I want to talk about after.
I've got some things too. This might be a long one today.
So if you were going to tell someone to start their journey or help someone start their own journey, what advice would you give them?
There needs to be a why,
Mm-hmm.
I think. Timeframes, not necessarily. I think timeframes are important to an extent. So obviously 10 weeks, pretty dramatic change in 10 weeks, but I wanted to see what I could get out of a 10-week cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Their journey doesn't have to be 10 weeks, it could be, 2 years.
Yeah.
I do think that time parameters do work for certain people more than others. People do sort of thrive under pressure. You just need to make sure it's not, as I said earlier, that 30-day binge where you just swing into it. But a cut-off date, or it doesn't have to be a cut-off date, but have a goal and have when you want to get there and make it reasonable. So I think one of the things that's important for me too is that my goal changes. So with my coach, it was essentially started at 120. I'm down to about 100 now. Want to drop to 90 just to see if I can get there and get rid of the last little bit and then essentially build back up. So he wants me sitting anywhere between 150 and 120, but that'll be a much longer process. So, as you know, I found that cutting fat is a lot easier than building muscle. And you see it all the time. A lot of people do drop a lot of weight, but then you see how long it takes for professional athletes and bodybuilders to get to their size, and it takes years and years and years. So having that why, I think, is very important. So, why are you doing this? Is it because you feel unhealthy and you feel shitty? Are you... And make sure it's something for you, not something for someone else.
Instagram following.
Yeah, so... and I guess it can be for other people too. Say... this is going to sound really bad because it's based on appearance, but, say you weren't having any luck, getting a date or something like that, and you're, 200 kilos. I'm not saying that a 200 kilo person shouldn't be able to get a date, but if that's something where you think that
you could increase your chances.
You could increase your chances. Same thing with...
and let's be fair, we all know that it's a good thing for you.
So
It's not like... It requires less energy to fix yourself than what it would take to change the world's idea of what you should be.
Correct.
And I'll just on that note too, I can't remember what I was watching the other day, but they were, it might have been Flagrant too maybe, but they're talking about, they've done a study on Tinder and dating sites, and they got people to rate themselves for what number out of 10 in physical attractiveness they think they are. And then they saw who they swiped on and who they didn't. And so for guys, typically what most guys were doing was they would rate themselves, say, a 6 out of 10. They might swipe up to a 7 or an 8, but then they'll also swipe some 5s, some 4s, maybe a couple of 3s here and there, probably depending on what time of the early morning it is. Pretty much. But they found with women were typically, the absolute majority, 95% of swipes are on 10s and 9s, regardless of what they actually rated themselves personally.
Yeah, I mean, that's
That's funny.
But that's evolution. We can...
It makes sense, right?
Yeah, we can argue it till we're blue in the face that you shouldn't like someone based on their appearance, but
that's what you see.
That's what you see. You don't have the opportunity to go and find out what kind of personality they have until you've made the first judgment, which is, this person looks like someone that I'd be attracted to. Let's see what their personality's like.
Yeah.
That's the first barrier.
There's a reason why we feel attracted to someone without knowing who they are in the first place.
Yeah, it's a genetic biomarker too.
Yeah, that's right.
Have you got good genes? You can tell that someone's got good genes by the way they look.
Yeah, so again, being healthy and fit for the idea of actually putting out a better looking you, that's not a bad thing as long as it's not your sole goal.
Correct.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you to sum up is, on your journey, did the RDO podcast influence you in any way, shape or form?
It has given me a more positive outlook on aspects. So again, as I said, I like to ride that sort of medium, no highs, no lows.
Yep.
And the vast majority of why I'm at that line is because there are a lot of negatives that I do attach myself to. But yeah, there are certainly, watching you guys and, what you've done sort of outside of the constructs of, corporate worlds and things like that. It takes stepping out and looking at other people doing things differently to appreciate it as well. Because once you're sort of in that machine, you just sort of...
Yeah, your blinkers are on.
Yeah, just complete tunnel vision. Like, we've all been there. Yeah,
you're just part of it. So, again, like, I've just got accepted into uni to study psychology. So that was born, I guess, from this challenge, because I can see that there are a lot of people who potentially want to change, but they don't have the tools to get there. Even, elite level powerlifters are still, I know a guy who can lift 400 kilos, but he's like, I'm not jacked, I'm not like this, these bodybuilders, I don't feel good. It's like, you lifted almost half a ton off the ground, you're focusing on the wrong thing. So I do think there's a lot of sort of mental barriers that people don't have the right tools to sort of grasp and unlock their full potential, which I would like to sort of experiment in that space and see if we can do something there.
Very cool.
for sure.
Yeah, cool.
Whereas I think before, because I was part of that corporate machine, it was all me. What can I do that's going to help me? Don't care about anyone else. But being in this sort of experience and watching the pod every week, it is sort of, how can we help the person next to us as well?
Interesting. That's cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
What did you want to bring up?
So a couple of things. One thing I want to talk about just very, very briefly was, and you're not really a big combat sports fan, are you? So neither of you are. But I wanted to talk about, briefly touch on the Paul Gallen Lucas Brown fight on Wednesday. So, big boxing match. Now, I didn't watch it because I knew it was going to be a shit show for a start. But one of the things that I did just quickly want to say to Boxing Australia, more people would watch your shit if the main event didn't start at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday night. So they've got to address that. They've just got to make it earlier.
Where was the fight?
Wollongong. Like, in Australia.
But obviously the buying, like, are they getting
The
more...
American audience.
Yeah, is there
what
an
I can tell you right now, the American audience does not give a shit about Paul Gallen fighting Lucas Brown. They just don't care. And then when...
I hear it's sponsored by 4 and 20 sausage rolls, I believe.
Well, no, as...
that was an apricot slice.
It was an apricot slice or whatever, yeah. I honestly, so I'll put it out there. I did have a little bit of money on Paul Gallen to win by decision, for him to be a former world champion, Australia's only ever heavyweight boxing champion in less than 2 minutes. Great achievement for Paul Gallen. Like, he is actually doing really, really well. Lucas Brown, come on, man. Clearly, I don't think he was actually invested in this at all. He just showed up to get a payday. And look, fair enough. Make your money, whatever. That's fine. But one thing I did want to say is that was there were some really good undercard fights in that, which showed how, I guess, healthy like Australian boxing is becoming, because it's not really been a big thing over here. And I just wanted to highlight some of the Australian combat sports athletes that we've got going on around the world at the moment, because we are achieving really good things. So like last weekend you had Robert Whittaker in the UFC, amazing shutout performance of Kelvin Gastelum, very, very good fighter. So he's probably in line for the next title shot again. So he's been a world champion before. And he'll probably face Israel Asadi next. So that's coming up. You've got an Australian legend, John Wayne Parr, Muay Thai legend, just fought yesterday in one championship. Now, he lost against a guy called Nicky Holscomb, who is a beast. Like, these are two combat legends just going at each other. But talking about mental strength and training and stuff like that. So John Wayne Parr's got somewhere around 150 professional fights on his record. He's got 99 wins, so he wants his 100th win, right? He's 44 years old. He had hip surgery 7 months ago, so hip resurfacing. So essentially he had that much scar tissue in his hip. They pull it out, they shave the surface off, they make a new like little cup for it, and they stick it back in. like major surgery, right? 7 months ago at 44 years of age. And yet he lost. He put on an amazing performance. Because of COVID, he was not allowed to bring a team with him to Singapore. So no team. One championship, they do a thing called hydration testing for... so one of the big problems with combat sports is weight cut.
Weight cuts, yeah.
Right? So oftentimes you're getting people who are just losing a bunch of water weight. They're completely drawn out the day before the fight. And then when you don't have the water in your skull, it's really dangerous, right? So one championship has brought in a thing called hydration testing. So you need to hit your the weight limit, but you also need to be hydrated when you hit the weight limit.
Interesting.
Now, it's the first time he's ever had to do this in his entire 150 fight career. So it was an absolute disaster. He put a post up on his social media about it, and it essentially consisted of him the entire day spending on a treadmill and drinking water, trying to weigh in but still be hydrated at the same time. So
no one competes at the weight that they compete at.
That's right.
No one.
They should. I think they should.
I think, look, in a way, yes and no. Because, in my personal opinion, I feel like you should still be able to cut weight, but they should have weigh-ins 3 days before the fight instead of the day before. Because I feel like you should be able to safely cut the weight down, but give your body enough time to safely put the nutrients and the water back into it.
It is strange though, because you've got people competing, so do powerlifting, for example. You've got people competing in the under 110 kilo weight class who are 116 kilos, and they do that water cut, and then they just do a big refeed the next day.
Wouldn't it sound rational and logical
to just compete in the
weight that you're at? So you weigh in before
but this
you
is the thing. I'm not saying in all sports, but some sports, then they just have an open category. So once you teeter over, say 115, it might just be open. So you could be a 116 kilo lifter against a 140 kilo lifter. Yeah, that person's gonna pull a shit ton more than you. So if you just cut that 6 kilos in water weight and you come in at under 110,
it's a lot easier.
It's a lot easier.
And you also compete against people who are more in line with your size. And that's one of the issues with like heavyweight class in like the UFC and also in boxing as well. So like in most weight classes in the UFC, you've got maybe a 10 to 15 sort of pound difference between each class. In the heavyweight division, it's 206 to 265 pounds. So you're talking 30 kilos different. So again, when you're fighting someone, a 30 kilo weight difference is a big deal. So look, I agree with you. Weight cutting is one of the biggest problems with the sport. The one championship model is great for people who are living there, training there, doing it all the time. But for a 150 fight veteran at 44 years old, 7 months off, hip surgery, which means he can't actually run properly, to go through everything that he did and then face an absolute killer. And again, put on a great performance. He lost by TKO, but put on an amazing performance. Shout out to John Wayne Parr. He's an Australian treasure, which not enough people actually know about and appreciate. Coming up this weekend, you've got a UFC event on Sunday. There's a guy called Jim Crute who's fighting first fight of the main card. If you don't know who Jim Crute is and you're a fight fan, find out who Jim Crute is. He's going to be our next big thing as far as male light heavyweights go. He's an absolute beast, and he's gone up against a guy called Anthony Smith who's got a big name. I wouldn't say he's on the back end of his career, very, very experienced. But it's a really good opportunity for Jim Crute to really break through into like the top 10 and show what he can do, which is awesome. And we've also got a girl called Casey O'Neill who's just signed with the UFC, who is like the next big thing in the women's flyweight. So Australian combat athletes on a world stage are going so much better than the absolute shit show we saw on Wednesday night between Paul Gallen and Lucas Brown. And if you are a fight fan, educate yourself on these people, because they are, like, we've got some really, really good athletes going out at the moment.
Maybe we put links to the socials or something at the bottom of the
well, and the cool thing about One Championship is they put all of their fights on their YouTube channel for free. So you could go on YouTube right now, I'll put a link to it, and you can watch John Wayne Parr's fight that he just had. and you can watch any one championship fight on there, which is pretty cool.
Because how many fights do they generally get in the UFC?
So it depends, and this is probably where it gets tricky for the fighters, because oftentimes the UFC will try to sign you on a long-term deal, like an 8-fight contract, for example, because, again, they're a business, so they want to sign you up while you're cheap and hold you for as long as they possibly can. It's not really merit-based a lot of the time as far as who keeps their contract and who doesn't. It used to be that if you lost 3 fights in a row, you would just be marched anyway. But in recent years, it's, you'll have guys who might have lost, 5 out of the last 6 fights, but fans tune in to watch them every time because they're exciting, and those guys will stay on the card, which I think is really good to have, because it is an entertainment business these days too.
I mean, that's Logan Paul is this what Money Mayweather did and what McGregor did. You just talk shit. Yeah, that's all you do is just talk shit, and people just want to hit you.
Yeah, and
people watch it.
That was probably something else I was going to bring up too. Was the whole Jake Paul Ben Askren fight thing? There's everything before this, because I'm not a Jake Paul fan. I'll freely admit I'm not a Jake Paul fan, but I will say, for a kid who's dipping his toes into boxing, he does have some skills. Yeah. He's got one combo, but he uses it effectively against guys who don't have that combo. And if he actually faces real boxers who've seen that combo, because it's very basic, it's basically a jab to the body and an overhand right. So it's designed to jab to the body, brings your hands down, overhand right. It's the knockout punch.
You have to have knockout power, though, to make it.
You do have to have power, for sure. And he is a bigger guy. Like, he'd be similar size to us, I'd say.
In better shape.
A little bit. But for all these people who've come out going, let's see what happens when he fights a real boxer. Ben Askren was his 3rd fight. His 3rd professional fight. Yeah. And I saw Brendan Sharp said this during the week. You go back, watch all the greats. Watch Mayweather. Watch Tyson Fury. Watch, in their 3rd fight. He's not a real boxer yet. Yeah, exactly. He's not a real boxer yet. So, but he's very smart.
But I don't know if that's his goal.
No, it's not.
No, it's money.
It's money.
And he's absolutely killing the game at the moment.
Yeah, fight basketball players. Who cares? You get a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get brain damage.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not going to get hurt. I'm going to knock you out. I'm going to make a shitload of money doing it. Why wouldn't you do that?
I did say to you during the week, my concern is that I'm not exactly stoked with this seemingly ramping up of these exhibition fights, because I worry that someone's going to get really, really hurt one day because they're not boxers. Because they're not real martial artists, they might not have the tools required, and someone might get really, really hurt out of this, which might stop the whole
Look, it may happen, but would you fight Jake Paul for $500,000?
Yeah, would I get knocked out by Jake Paul? Yeah, I would.
I would do it in a heartbeat.
But I'm just saying, watch this space. Something, if more and more of these become more prevalent, and then, some other social media guys, as they're organising smaller events, boxing's dangerous. It is a dangerous thing, and it can't go well. The more that it happens, the chances of serious injury only go up.
Yeah, and look, that is a point. At the end of the day, I will say, though, it's just a personal choice thing. And if you choose to take part in a boxing match, you know the consequences that can happen out of that as well. So I do believe that we should live in a free society where if you want to box someone, you should be allowed to box someone if you want to.
Yeah. I suppose the message that I'm saying out there is, you use your head for things other than CT, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to go get rich. I just don't want young people going and saying, all right, aspiring, that's what I need to do. I need to get into exhibition fights because that's where the money's at.
Yeah, but in fairness, I think that's a smarter thing for young people to do than go and fight in the street like they normally do for free with no gloves on.
It kind of goes into, because other way, this segues into what I want to talk about, which is Dogecoin. So you could go and make money other ways.
Right.
So you guys were all witness to this because I sent it in the group chat. But I have made a little bit of money off Dogecoin previously. It is a meme coin. I understand. We're talking cryptocurrencies now for the uninitiated. It's a joke. Dogecoin is a joke. However, because people have made so much money out of other cryptocurrencies, they're willing to dabble into these joke coins. And when Uncle Elon Musk tweets something, it just goes through the roof and everyone jumps on it. So I was very much up on Dogecoin. And I'll say figures. It was about $800 I've made just from little Dogecoin bets here and there. So I thought...
I like how you call them bets.
Well, yeah. So because it's not a... I think it's betting, and this is what I want to talk about, the difference between betting and investing. I'm an investor, I'm not a bettor. But with Dogecoin, for example, it was just timing. The times I've made money is when there's been a pump, jump on the pump, ride it up. So in a way, that's more investing. What I did on Sunday, they disgusted me. And I did it. I've got nothing but myself to blame, but it was an interesting mental note on myself, what I did. I went 20 times long on Dogecoin and watched it, right? And I made...
We're sorry, Nicholas Mertens.
Yeah,
we're sorry.
In 10 seconds, I made $140, right? In 10 seconds. Sold. All right, I'm going to ride this train again, go again. Boom. Made like $180 next one. Oh, man, how good is this? Bam. Sold. The next one, my brain is now completely irrational. And all I'm thinking is this train...
You've won on it every time. Like,
this
you're on a
train
hot streak, bro. Like, you can't lose.
The problem when you go 20 times leverage is that you only need a very small percentage loss for it to completely liquidate. So, and the worst thing about liquidation is it doesn't even tell you liquidates until you go searching for it. It just disappears off your platform. And I'm like, where did it go? And I sent you guys a video of what it looks like when it goes. And it's very... it's not very...
it's an unceremonious way to lose all your money.
Yeah. So, and I gave it all away.
Right.
I gave it all away. So, and then on reflection of that, I'm like, man, that is so dumb. But that is that FOMO. That is all the things that they tell you that you shouldn't do. It's easy, even for someone like me, that's not a gambler, that has usually used some form of educational information to make an informed decision on it. I got caught up in it.
Yeah.
And gave all that money.
All right. I've just created a new investment rule.
Yeah.
If you're looking at investing something and your heart rate raises slightly, don't do it.
Yeah.
That's my new investment rule.
Probably not bad.
Because if your heart rate raises slightly, that means that you're starting to emotionally or potentially FOMO invest in something. So don't do it.
Yeah,
it was funny because 2 trades before that, you said I just want enough to
pay for lunch. Yeah.
And then
rolled it.
So you progressed literally within the same hour from like you were on the pokies and you were doing 20-cent bets and you just kept winning and you were like, you know what? If I ramp this up to the $1 bets, I reckon I can just take this and multiply it by 5. And then you ramped it up and then it took all your money.
So leverage trading sucks.
Yeah.
So then I actually tried only 2x, like 2 times leverage, which is a little bit more, you can definitely, it's less, you got less exposure.
Yeah, it's lower risk, lower reward.
Yeah. Now, I used technical analysis to come to my decision. So I had TradeView open, I saw an ascending wedge being built, and you know that after this certain wedge, it will break out in a certain way. Now, the rough rule of thumb, and I've not studied formally, this is just, and I obviously got it wrong, but usually it breaks out in line with the overriding trend at the time. So it's gone on this massive peak, moved in this sideways ascending wedge. In my mind, it was obviously going to break up. So that's why I put a bet in there, because I thought it was going to go up. Purchased or entered a trade, and it broke down. So it broke out in a bearish formation. And then it formed the exact same shape. So then I've gone, well, obviously, it's going to go up this time. And it went exactly the same way it did before, down. So...
don't chase your losses, gamble responsibly.
But and I think the big lesson in especially in the crypto thing is that Doge provides no value. besides jokes and memes, you know. And there are a whole stack of these coins now, just like what happened in 2017, 2018. All these scam coins come out, all this... you got to think about the mindset of these people that have made...
What was it? Safe Ponzi?
There was one up Safe Ponzi and Cum
Rockets.
Cum Rockets.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these people are creating these ridiculous coins. And don't forget, there's a lot of people out there that have made massive multiples on their investments.
Oh, yeah.
That have no freaking idea.
Well, that's the whole thing. Like, when we played around in Dogecoin months ago when Reddit was trying to pump it to $1, right?
We all thought we were going to get rich very quickly.
Yeah, and we were buying it like when it was worth sort of 3 or 4 cents per coin. And then... You know, we rode that wave a little bit up and down. Like, I think we all made a tiny little bit of money.
Yeah, I made some money out of it.
Right, I made a little bit of money too, but not that much. If we just would have held it, it went up to like 50 cents.
Yeah.
So, the only thing I think of, if Doge does ever get down to that 3 or 4 cent mark again, I'll probably just buy a couple of coins.
For sure.
And then I'll just sit on them.
Oh, sure. Big time.
And sit on them long term. Because, you know, if, like I said, if Uncle Elon tweets about it, and then if Tesla buys 1 million Dogecoin...
Yeah, well, that pirate coin went from, like...
A fraction of a cent.
Yeah, a fraction of a cent to, like, $10.
Mm.
Well, that's the other trick that some people do is create a very short supply coin that when it moves only very little bit in terms of valuation, the percentage goes up. So it shows up on a lot, like Coin Market Cap. You might search by what's grown by the most.
Yeah.
And there's something, you know, if you had there was a coin that had a circulating supply of only 3 coins, and it went up a cent. Well, as a percentage, it's huge. So someone like, okay, I need to buy that.
Yeah, that's right.
And it drives the price up. So there's all these games that are played. So I still think of myself as a fundamentals trader, and I want to believe in the thing that I'm investing in. Doge is not one of those things, and you are destined to get burnt.
Because your heart rate raised slightly.
I don't know if my heart...
Oh, fuck oath it did. You don't film something and send it to your mates if your heart rate hasn't raised at all.
Yeah, it was rough. It was rough.
I'm trying to think the last time you sent me something really boring.
Was that boring?
No, it wasn't.
That's the point.
That's the point.
So,
but it's great how you didn't follow your own principles.
I know. I was completely outside of my own skin.
Twice. Which was the alarming thing, because you're like, oh, once this wedge forms, it goes the way that it's been going, and it went down. You thought, well, surely it won't go down again. It's like, but you just said that it forms to go in the current direction.
You should have gone 40x on the second time, because then you would have gotten back up and then further. Why didn't you just go 100x on your next trade?
Well, I'll try it. I'll try 100. I'll try 100 and see what happens, provided it's going up. But yeah, look, there's money to be made on the pumps, but you've got to be fast. And like, I was dirty because I missed that day. I missed a really good Doge pump because we're here. No, on Saturday there was a massive pump. I think you maybe texted the group saying that Uncle Elon had said something, and I was busy. I was with customers, so I couldn't get on it.
Yeah, I think it's when it went from about 10 cents to about 18 cents.
Yeah.
And then it just went from there to 50 cents.
Yeah, it's like 54 cents or something ridiculous. So, like, remember at the beginning when they were like, yeah, let's get Doge to $1, and everyone's like, whatever. Got halfway there. Yeah. In 2 months, it got halfway there. It's crazy.
I had a lot of belief in that. I had like $3,500 in that.
Oh, so something, we're talking about, we've spoken about ETFs in recent times. They got a shout out on ABC News this morning.
Did they really? Vanguard?
So, not Vanguard. So an Aussie one had said that ETF... people in Australia that have invested in ETFs went from 450,000 to 750,000 people in 1 year. So it's grown, and they're expecting to get another 200,000. And a very high percentage of millennials that are investing in ETFs. And I think that's a great sign. That is a really, really good sign. And they're saying, look, it's because not everyone can get into property. Also, access to information out there. It's if you just search for what's the best way to trade or a safe way to trade, I'm encouraged to think that, because everyone goes, oh, these kids aren't going to know what to do. well, the stats are showing that they're more engaged in investing than what we thought. So that's good. I think it's really good, and it will drive prices higher too.
Yeah, the only thing that maybe scares me a little bit about it is I think I sent you guys a picture in the group too the other day about, so the ETF that I'm in is showing a 12-month return of 38% at the moment. And if everyone is buying into it thinking that that's the return they're going to get, they will be a little bit disappointed because it was literally 12 months at the end of March this year, whereas at the, I think it was the start of, it might have been March last year that was when Vanguard just tanked.
Everything did.
Everything did when COVID hit, the share market tanked because everyone freaked out. So obviously you're showing 12 months of
it's just
completely
back to where it was.
Look at 10-year averages and
yeah, exactly right. But hey, I've been really, really happy with the performance of our ETF that we've been in.
Yeah.
And I wish I did it sooner, really.
So I'll be getting into it as soon as my property sell. I'm going balls deep into VAS.
Can you 20x on an ETF? You'll find a way.
It is.
You'll find a way.
Well, no, but that's what property is. Property is leverage trading. So yeah, I'm ridiculous for what I did, but buying a house, you're leverage trading. So you are borrowing money to invest.
Yeah.
And I think I put 15 grand in back in the day, borrowed 300. So what's that as a percentage?
Yeah.
So 20x is actually not as irrational as what you think. I think that's
but
funny.
20x on Dogecoin is irrational. Yes.
It wasn't the first two.
No, but you didn't you say you didn't 20x on the first two?
No, I did 20x on the first
two.
Okay. So I made the big bang.
Right.
But what you've just illustrated to me there is you being very critical of 20xing Doge, but quite happy to 20x property.
Yeah, because you literally just said before that Dogecoin has no value.
Correct.
Yeah.
Property does have value and always will have value.
Yeah.
So it is more rational to 20x on a property than it is
property
on
won't
Dogecoin.
always have value. That's not a definite.
No, it is.
State decides all of a sudden, so a new regime comes in, state decides, oh, by the way, there's no property ownership anymore, then what happens?
Yeah, that's a pretty big call that I don't think we'll see in our lifetime in Australia.
But there are chances.
Yeah, I know, but there's more of a chance, there's less of a chance of the Australian government taking over into a dictatorship and taking all their properties off than Dogecoin being having more value than property.
What I'm trying to illustrate is that 20x sounds ridiculous, yet people are being told to do it every day. That's what I'm trying to say.
I know.
Yeah.
I understand that.
In a more stable market.
But not beneficial to them. So I've done the maths. Me 20 times leveraging for property compared to what I could have got non-leverage trading in an ETF, and I would have been $150,000 ahead.
Well, I think it depends on the property too.
Yeah.
You
You straight up got unlucky on your properties. I don't understand why they haven't gone astronomically through the roof.
No, but I would say though, even the ones that have gone astronomically up have all the costs been factored in. You know, have land rates are more expensive for more expensive properties. You know, so if you really sat down and analysed, have you really benefited from it?
Yeah,
I think that you're not quite there yet though, because you've got 2 units. Yeah.
Well, a duplex pair. A standalone.
Well, you're getting to the realization now that most places are going to turn into duplexes or townhomes or units, because essentially the reason why a lot of the house prices have gone up is because developers are buying them in 2s and 3s, knocking them down and putting units up. So yours doesn't have the same growth at the moment because they can't knock yours down and build.
Well, I'd considered it. I considered I can knock it down and go up. So I could turn 2 3-bedrooms into 4 3-bedrooms. And then the rental yield is great. Like you double your rental yield. But the problem is then you have also, you're now borrowing even more. Yes, the return on that 1%, 1.5% that you're making on it in terms of rent is good. But again, what I'm saying is, have people considered what a non-leveraged investment looks like compared to a extreme leverage? And property is extreme leverage, and it's attractive now at record low interest rates. But I paid 9.89. when I first got mine. So that could easily three times the amount of
Well,
exposure.
it's low interest rate, but it's high cost to get in at that interest rate. So yeah, okay, it is only 2% or something, but you still need 100 grand or 150 grand to partake in that.
And then, like what you're saying is, if that interest rate shifts by 5%, most people who bought a house are fucked.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases. But also, what I'm going to say is that when whatever profit that you pull out of the sale of those properties, you're not investing in Dogecoin.
Some of them will go to Doge. I've no doubt some of them will go to Doge. I'll make sure I allocate some into Doge.
Yeah.
But I'll be keeping a very close eye on Elon Musk's tweets. There is money in pump and dumps for sure.
Oh yeah, oh, definitely. And that's the thing. Like, as long as you're saying that the opportunities is in pump and dumps, not the opportunity specifically in Doge.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's
reckless.
That's very reckless.
But I remember this is not new to me, the pump and dump's not new to me. In 2017, John McAfee, McAfee Antivirus, he created McAfee Antivirus. He's massive into cryptos, in jail at the moment. And he used to do a coin of the day. And every morning, I'd wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, read his tweet for what the pump of the day was, buy $500 worth of that coin, and you'd add 50% to your profile every single time. It was lunacy.
Why is he in jail?
All sorts. Watch he's got a documentary on Netflix called Gringo.
Okay.
He is not who you think he is. If you thought someone that was made his millions creating an antivirus thing, he's picked up many viruses himself.
No, well, we've had this conversation before. The argument is always, why don't the Jeff Bezos of the world help mankind? Like, they're the richest people on the planet. Why aren't they putting more into helping everyone else? Well, the reason why they are the richest person on the planet is because they don't want to. That's how they got to where they are.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't do it by investing in, the common good.
Well, as long as there is a return on the investment. So Bill Gates, I would say, is someone who's heavily invested in what he would dictate as fixing the world. So his vaccination program, I think he said he's making 5 times his investment in pushing these. So there are people that are doing it, but you're only going to do it if it profits.
Correct.
Yeah. Although I did, when I finished the book that I read, Motivated Money, by Peter Thornhill, the very last chapter, he talks about the why. And a lot of people saying, oh, there's people that have got just too much money. And he talked about a whole list of people that he knew in his network that gave their money to foundations when they passed. And there was one that some scientific program that purely gets paid out by donations from these big estates. And they get no government funding. Yet some of them are creating technologies and medicine and things like that. So that was something I'd never factored in before. And there's a lot of what's it called when you
Philanthropy.
Philanthropy, yeah. So that was an aspect that I'd not thought of before.
But here's something that a lot of people don't think about too, because a lot of people donate money to various causes, whether it's World Vision or whatever. But something that was in headlines recently was so Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, when they had their fight a few months ago, prior to that fight actually happening, Conor McGregor said that he would donate $500,000 to Dustin Poirier's charity. And then in recent weeks, there's been Dustin Poirier tweeted basically saying that Conor McGregor had welched on the money. Now, Conor McGregor's clapped back going, we asked your team for a plan of where the money's going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
That's fair.
Right? Completely fair. So you got to think about it too. How many of us who think we're doing the right thing donate money to various causes every single day with zero plan being sent back to us on what that money is being spent on?
I think you find World Vision's probably one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
I think, didn't we look it up? They generated something like $18 billion in their time, and
I haven't fixed the problem.
yeah. Whereas Akon's going in and actually turning over, he's actually providing power to villages in Africa and profiting from it.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, like, this gets back to the conversation we have all the time about deconstructing the media and what all, follow the money. When a charity gets all of its funding from donations to solve a problem and that problem goes away, where does their funding go? Right? So where is the
Where does the
incentive?
foundation go?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the
Where do
problem
those people's
is...
jobs go? Those people that are leading up that
That's right.
foundation. Yeah.
So that's why, like, one of the things that just shits me to tears about things like World Vision. So you sponsor a child, right? And then they
You don't even get to keep it at the end.
yeah, you like, don't even own it. But no, when they send you, like, they just ramp up the propaganda. So they send you, like, the letters from the child, and they've got, like...
That Steve wrote.
Yeah, exactly right.
What would a 12-year-old Ethiopian think?
Yeah, like, it's...
I don't think they'll think like that. I think it'd be more like that, yeah.
Yeah, but it is literally just propaganda that they just mass market, and it's probably every single person who sponsors a child, they just check you geographically how close you are to another sponsor, and then if you're too close, they give you a different generic kit that they've sent out. Because I guarantee, let's do this, right? Anyone out there who sponsors a child, I want you to post your letter on the RDO podcast Facebook page. Just post your letters up. Because I want to see if you're all getting letters from the same kid.
Interesting, yeah, because you've thrown some very outlandish claims out there. I'm completely unsubstantiated. So let's try and substantiate before we go on.
So post your letters up.
And I think we leave it at that. I think we leave it there. But thank you, Liam, for coming in.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us and sharing with us your journey. Shout out your coach and your coach's gym again.
So Dave and Jen, they both run Platform Strong at Ironhouse Gym at Caboolture.
Cool.
Yeah. And we'll put it in the comments.
Happy days. Shout out to you, Dave. Great job. Keep the coaching up. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next RDO.